Oh, there once was a boy who had two heads. One was alive and the other was dead. Sometimes the kid would talk to himself, but he wished the dead head was sitting on a shelf. One day the lad got really bored. He looked at his boring head and said, "Today you get gored." He took a bowie knife and just like the Walking Dead, he stabbed his twin right through the head. Nothing much happened to the second vouch, but the boy got freaked when the bloody dead head said, "Ouch." Ow! Yeah. Okay, well that... Can you see the ghost here? You have a ghost up here. I've never turned him on. There you go. Look at that ghost. Oh, you can't see him. Just flickering. Anyway, that's the song of the day, the night. Hello, everybody. It's me talking to myself again. We're going to read another 1 hour's worth of Obligate Whisper. But first, what's the joke of the day? Oh, I didn't pick a poem out. Maybe I can... Oh, I got a book called Good Poems, Garrison Keillor's. You almost can't go wrong with that book, so I'll grab one out of that. Remember when he did Writer's Almanac? That's what it was called on the radio. Okay, today's joke. A mother was preparing pancakes for her sons, Jack and Chris. The boys began to argue over who would get the first pancake. Their mother saw the opportunity for a moral lesson. If Jesus were sitting here, he would say, "Let my brother have the first pancake. I can wait." Jack turned to his younger brother and said, "Chris, you be Jesus." Another good clean joke. All right, well, today I will be Peter, and iced tea, yum, yum, yum. Okay, I said I was going to try to find a... Here's my... See, Good Poems, selected and introduced by Garrison Keillor. Let's just randomly see if we can find a good one. Here's one that's not too long, so if it's a bad poem, at least it won't last long. But it's got to be good. It's from the Good Poem book. Girl on a Tractor by Joyce Sutphen. I knew the names of all the cows before I knew my alphabet, but no matter the subject, I had mastery of it. And when it came time to help in the fields, I learned to drive a tractor at just the right speed so that two men walking on either side of the moving wagon could each lift a bale, walk towards a steady arriving platform, and simultaneously hoist the hay onto the rack. Walk to the next bale, lift, turn, and find me there, exactly where I should be, my hand on the throttle, carefully measuring out the pace. I don't know if they'll make a feature film out of that poem, but it certainly was something, wasn't it? Yes, that was Girl on a Tractor. Well, no comment. I didn't think it was that great a poem, but it was good. It was good. All right, make America's poetry good again. Let's delve right back into Obligate Whisper. So those of you too lazy to read the big book can just listen to these videos. You know, when you got nothing better to do. Okay? All right. Let's put our... There we go. There we go. Now I can see where I'm doing. Where? Oh, okay. Well, I think we were in the caves when they're ready to leave the Hoodoo Gardens because of all the radiation fallout. And Salaman, the leader, is like trying to convince him, and Dune is trying to hold him back, and Moontree and Rune and the others are kind of behind Salaman. Right now, they're about to go into the secret maternity hall, very secret place where they give birth to new ifs and so on. So here we are in what chapter are we in? We're still in chapter 8. All right. The three of them left after exchanging some intense hugs and caresses to Eilit. She was given the responsible task of watching over the entire If population, and Salaman made a short announcement to that effect. See, I love those letters I got, but I block them every time. So what if I just, so it's all about the ambiance, Isn't that better? That's kind of neat. Now you can watch Hank and his eyes. Ooh, my little skull friend. The trek to this sacred place was indeed a long one. It was not until dusk they approached the entrance. "This is where the women come when they give birth," Moontree and Skippet. "Only myself and the mothers are allowed entrance." They approached what seemed to be a normal grotto, artificially carved with old but rather uninteresting figurines. But once they squeezed through the portal, they held their breath in awe. There before them was a cavern more beautiful than Moontree or Skippet had ever seen in their lives. The ceiling reached high overhead with colorful, bluish-purple stalactite gems. The floor was literally draped with a shell-like, abalone-like colored surface. And the walls took on a new color with every step they took. It was very special because the highest knew the women would need encouragement for the early birthing of our newly hidden fragile tribe, Salaman said softly. You like my truck? All right. Moontree took Skippet's hand and squeezed it lightly. He knew Skippet was thinking about his wife. When they walked through several rooms, Salaman instructed them to rest until the sun was down, which was now only a power nap away. And so they did. "Moontree," said Skippet as they curled into comfortable positions, "I know this sounds strange, but did you know that Salastar wanted you to be the spirit parent of our children should one of us had died?" A spirit parent to the Ifs was very similar to that of godparents to humans. The only difference is that a spirit parent would have been cared for as a family member no matter the circumstances. Thus, the responsibility and care from the spirit parent would take on an even deeper role, almost like that of literally adopting the child or children. If the remaining parent was the opposite sex, everything would be like mutual parents, but for the sexual expectations. "Really," said Moontree, deeply touched. "I am heart-feathered." Heart-feathering or heart-mothering are expressions of being deeply affected for the, in If tongue. Deeply heart-feathered. Moontree was at a loss for words because of the now impossibility of that happening. "I just wanted you to know how much we both love you, Moontree." "Thank you," said Moontree. One thing to be learned about Ifs. When they said something so simple as thank you, it was taken as such. In other words, no more dialogue was necessary. The thank you was heartfelt and sincere. If an If did not indeed feel any sort of thanks, he or she would simply grunt or exhale a sort of sigh. I guess they were pretty honest. The other knew they did something The other knew they did something wrong or simply was misunderstood. Blunt honesty was in every if's nature. And I see I don't have any guests. That's okay. A few short months later, on September 2nd, 1945, Salaman, Moontree, Skippet, and Roon had little notion the world war that had caused the atom bomb to be created and used on the Japanese had ended with the Japanese officially signing the instrument of surrender on board the USS Missouri. 2,194 days after the German invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939. Unconditional surrender was the hope the world held onto, and most sane people, from the uneducated to the highest learned scientist, added to this hope a need to never use such horrific, monstrous weapons ever again. But this did not mean the Earth had felt the end of the nuclear discoveries, its curiosities, and its poisonous effects. This did not mean modern scientists would not continue pushing the ideologies of nuclear power. This did not mean 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima would never happen, or the countless underwater, oceanic, and underground tests would end. No, actually, the nuclear nightmare had just begun, and its doors were ever more open, more welcome to modern man, and more difficult to shut than ever. Safer water was indeed discovered far away, close to human settlements. Night scouts for the IFs increased in numbers, never found by humans for years, as Dune's plan to stay in the deserted desert of the Hoodoo atmosphere remained intact. The delayed radioactive fallout the IFs unknowingly experienced remained in their deeper tunnels for the years that followed. Salaman was always suspicious, and as he dialogued with Moontree and a selected confidential group, they all shared a common distrust of what Dune had cemented. In secret meetings, they conferred, but all that resulted were private talks of shared bitterness and wariness. Nothing changed as they watched their family members and friends and acquaintances die from cell destruction and a variety of hitherto unknown cancers. Until one fateful day when Skippet called upon Moontree via a mutual bat friend, Iligard. "It's Skippet. He wants to see you. Says you haven't been by in quite a few moons." "Oh, Skippet, my dear friend. Thank you, Iligard. I will go now. I've just been so busy recruiting these young bloods here. You know, they need to know how the upper regions work, and don't, of course. You know these humans." Iligard cut Moontree off a bit impolitely for a bat. "I'm sorry, Moontree, but I need to go. But you, Moontree, so do you." Moontree stared off a bit perplexed at the anxious bat as he sped off, zigzagging his way past the small entrance to the learning grounds he used to scout instruct in. Why would he say that? And so he crawled his way back to the new apartments where he knew Skippet lived and conducted his day-to-day business. Upon arrival to his dwelling, Moontree paused with a sense of foreboding. "Skippet? Skippet?" "Over here, Moontree." Skippet was with Isham Randybark, an aged if of 127 years who was good friends with Skippet and his late wife Salastar. Isham was an elder like Salaman and shared shaman-like qualities. The two often conferred together on important matters. Also in the room were the couple Steamlim and Andersalt. They were sitting next to a small bed of straw where a small if laid apparently sleeping, the blanket rising and falling in shallow, quick heaves as if in labored breathing. What is it? Is anything the matter?" asked Moontree, seeing the looks of consternation on everyone's faces. "Yes, answered Skippet softly, so as not to awaken the resting guest. Our patient here was discovered by Andersalt and Steamlim. The two of them went off into an area Dune had told everybody to stay clear of due to supposed weak ceilings and walls. He said he didn't want anyone to risk getting caught in more collapses of untested rock after the great shaking. Well, Andersalt and Steamlim felt something inside them neither could put into much sense, only words that echoed each other's joint jives. And joint jives is if for gut feelings or intuition. Ever since we were told to stay against the wishes of councils such as Salamans and Ishoms, Steamlim and I have felt uneasy around Dune and his followers. When they told us to stay away from the deepest of the paths, namely the stall halls, we nodded our heads, but as soon as nobody was around, we decided to check those darkest of passages out, Andersalt spoke. As you know, the deeper we go, the thicker the air, the colder the atmosphere. So it was not easy. Not because of crumbling walls and ceilings, but just for the sheer depth of those forbidden places. I mean, even before the great explosion, we were taught to never go down there. But we thought it odd Dune made it a point to tell us to stay away, not for the disturbing unknown mysteries, which would have been enough, but because it was unstable now. That place is so far from what happened above. We felt like he was hiding something. And boy, oh girl, was he, chimed in Steamlim. We crept down there mostly on our butt ends, sometimes on our tummies, and when we found a pretty big room to rest in, we sniffed around, and it still felt as if the air was livable, breathable. That's when we heard the whimpering, the crying. We slowly made our way to the sound until we came to a stone that seemed to be blocking a tinier room. "Hello," we shouted, and the weeping halted. We kept trying to get this if to find us to come toward the stone door, but she was too weak. All she could do was continue weeping in soft, hoarse gasps and wheezings. We tried to move the large rock, but it wouldn't budge, even with the two of us. That's when we heard her crawl towards us. She managed to thread a rope in between one of the rocks, between the rock door and the wall. She told us to pull, and we did. The rope was attached to another large stone that caused the bigger one to give way. So once we pulled it enough to walk in, we did. And that's when we discovered Calypso here. Calypso? Moontree said, shocked. But she was deemed dead. One of the crushed, never found. Oh, she was found, all right, said Andersalt, by Dune. At this point, Isham got up and stepped forward to face Moontree. It appears our popular shunker has a dark side, Moontree. As soon as the camp was under attack by the human demons, he took it upon himself to grab his favorite obsession, that of Calypso, our 19-year-old sister, who was off by herself when everything got hit from above. Moontree looked at Isham with astonished silence. Then he looked at the small frame of the young Calypso. Isham continued. He has been molesting and raping her ever since. All these weeks of moons, all these daytimes of dark sunshines, he kept her in a faraway cell-like room with a large stone only he, with the help of Calypso, could open. And she did help him, for it was he who let more air in the right confinement, and it was he who brought her small fish, upland herbs and mosses, and water to eat and drink. If it wasn't for the good fortune of Steamlim and her wife Andersalt's good curiosity and willingness to question his authority, she would never have been found in such a dreadful hope-eater state. The Sheik Shepherd, which is if for false prophet. How could he? He of all ifs. He who so many people revere with his words of poetry and nice advices, Moontree cried. At that point, the young woman raised her head slightly, trying to turn so she could face Moontree. Moontree, he has been stalking me since I can remember, since I began womanhood. I never told anyone because I didn't think anybody would believe me. He's so convincing, mumbled Skippet. Yes, so convincing. He even had me going for a while until he pressed on and pressed me in ways I asked him not to. Then the Mother Earth attack happened, and he took advantage of the chaos and confusion when no one else was looking. It was a man happening, Calypso, not a mother heart attack. But never mind that. We need to get you to safety, to a hospice where maids and nurses will watch over you. Let me deal with Dune. I will seek him out now and take care of everything, spoke Isham with a dark rumble in his anger-purring voice. Thank you, Elder Randy Bark. I never wanted to cause any trouble. Thank you for helping me. And Andersalt Steamlim, thank you for finding me. I owe you my life. Not to be skating in that direction, Calypso, answered Andersalt. You would have done the same for any of us. I guess, Moontree spoke slowly, I guess this all shows me how Salamon's joints jived in the ways that further proves to me he was right on so many things. I wish we... Hey. What's the matter? Hey. Somebody's meowing. They don't know what I'm doing. Where was I? He was right on so many things. I wish we spoke louder when we let the crowd win that day after the explosion. Salomon did what every good leader would do, Isham spoke calmly. If I was head captain, I would have listened to the will of the people as he did, despite the delusions caused by this sheik of an if. Let me go now. I believe I last heard he was in the column room. Isham left in a rush as his robes flurried about him. Steamlim was pouring a small stone goblet of cool water into Calypso's quivering mouth. Do you feel strong enough if Andersalt and I carry you to the hospice? She asked while purring softly. Yes, I think so. Good. Because for the off chance Dune isn't at the columns, I don't want him sniffing his way back to these apartments. Hey. 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 What's up? Why are you talking to me? Hold on. I don't have a pause on this. Hey. Oh. Go to your perch. Relax. Okay. I knock brains. I'm talking for Calypso, so she sounds weird. I knock brains, Calypso said as she staggered to her feet, Steamlim and Andersalt holding each of her arms. When Isham reached the column room, sure enough, there was Dune. He was instructing a group of young if men to cut one of the largest columns in the middle apart for an effigy of himself. What are you doing, Dune? Asked Isham as he approached him with purpose in his step. Oh, it's my master Randy Bark. I'm glad you're here. Maybe you could help me with the placement of my sculpture. Do you think it best if my face faces the main portal entrance or that way toward the other columns? What? What is this nonsense? How dare you desecrate one of the largest columns of the Hoodoo underground? Why, Why, you've cut it in half. You've killed her body. It took thousands of moon cycles for that thick stalactite and stalagmite to join until its formation of present day. And what's this talk of your face? You plan to have sculpted a likeness of you here? What forever in echoes for? Why, Master Randy Bark, so the people will forever remember the days of the Great Solution, and how it was Doon who sought a way to stay where our home forever shall be. Is it not right and appropriate? I am not desecrating the column, sir. I'm merely enhancing it for all future times. And he patted the empty air that once held the large stomach of the proud and tall column. It is not only inappropriate, it is head crazy. That's if for full of conceited nonsense. Head crazy. Okay. No if has ever erected a large statuette of him or herself in any of our halls or rooms, except perhaps as a party joke, only to be shattered for hidden glowstones. What have you done here but proven what a pompous brain you rest on your shoulders? I am ashamed to call you a learner, and yet you deem to call yourself a teacher. Out with you, boys. Leave Doon and I for the time. Isham waved the 5 young Ifs off so the 2 of them could be alone. Now then, Doon, I have much more serious matters to discuss with you than an inability to ask for permission to chop up our beauty. Do you know of the whereabouts of our Calypso? The young woman whose parents and kin have deemed dead from the cave-ins and roof giveways? The one we all declared deceased? Doon could tell by Isham's tone and look in his eyes his little secret had been discovered, so there was no point in trying to pretend he didn't know of her whereabouts or the fact that she was still alive. Yes, Master Randy Bark. Oh, I'm so glad you found her, too. Is she all right? I've been feeding her and keeping her safe until I could get help. You know the air down there is so very dank. And that's enough, Doon, Isham interrupted the calm-sounding actor. That is well enough, lad. You know we know. The tall If looked down at his old, translucent, chubby teacher. He scorned what he saw as authority and spiritual keenness compared to his own poor attempts at mere imitation with flowery words and vocabularies. He looked down with contempt and a kind of jealous emptiness which could never be filled with authenticity. She is not dead. That is all I know. I know I've been bringing her water and food these many weeks since the man-made Sheik prisons. Please tell her family she is safe, as you and I now get help to bring her higher. Again, Isham cut Doon off. She is safe at the nurseries, Doon. She is being cared for from the traumas you have inflicted on her these many weeks and years. From what she tells us, you have stalked that young innocent flower since who knows when, and it is you who now must pay the consequences of your depraved nature and actions. Doon looked to the 2 portals that opened the column room for traffic. He thought of fleeing, but he resisted. He wanted to see where Isham would take this payment of consequences. Perhaps they would simply demote him to that of a normal If, an unsophisticated and ignorant peasant even. He could live with that, and he would still have his statue made when only the youthfully naive and guileless were around to be ordered about by his manipulative psyche. And what is that, dear Randy Bark? What is my fate for caring so carefully for this flower of ours? For stalking? For telling her things only willing mates should tell one another? For molesting her against her will before and after her menses? For raping her? For keeping her a prisoner against her will in most unhealthy and life-threatening conditions? Doon, you are banished from our tribe. You are to be escorted by my choosing to the furthest bat egress at tomorrow's moonrise, and you are never to return to any Hoodoo Garden cave again. No entries, no exits, No trails for scouts. No trails for the wool and wheat gatherers. If any one if should see you again, you will be tied up, tied to the back of a wild horse and sent away again until you either learn you are alone forever or are killed by a bear, wolf, or man. You are dead to us, Dune. I can say nothing to help you. I can do nothing to help you. And before tomorrow's moon, Salaman Agard will escort you to the last if opening with the scouts I choose. You will never see our doorways again, for they will never welcome you. I insist upon a hearing, Isham. You cannot deny me that. And I insist on Calypso's presence when I speak, spoke Dune as calm as a turquoise pool of mild, deep waters. Your insistence is more torture than she deserves, Dune. I have made up my mind, and I still hold sway with the elders despite my age. She has been broken. We need no further proof. It is sad you cannot apologize even this late in your presence here. You have squandered any hearing you thought you deserved. Calypso is already here, and she pronounces you guilty with her condition and your admission. Follow me now to the same cell you kept your victim. There will be 4 guards there to make sure you never escape until we lead you to the portal of no return. You are older than you think, Isham Randy Bark. Step aside. I'm going to the nurseries. They will listen to me. Dune placed his long-fingered palm on Isham's shoulder and pushed him roughly as he walked past the old if and headed toward the east portway. But just as he stepped out of the room of columns, Skippet stepped in front of him and pointed a long, sharp, dagger-like stone to his chest. Going somewhere other than the nurseries, I presume, Dune? Dune looked down at the short but stout if with the weapon. You really intend to kill me, little Skippy? That would make the first murder amongst our kind since, I don't know when really. Forever? How popular would that make us then, you think? He laughed. Skippet stood his ground and remained staring at the domineering Dune, not giving an inch and not moving his dagger's aim. Hesbies. That means to hell with it, Nif. Hesbies. I don't need to find out just how the two of us will become targets for these authoritarian boofoos. He walked briskly to the other portal, where from behind the shadows, Moontree now jumped out. Slightly taller than Skippet, he was simply holding a very large rock. We're here to escort you with Isham's guidance to your prison cell, Dune. You can allow us to wrap the rope I have here around your hands, or you can feel the stone as I place it against your face at a very fast speed. Dune laughed nervously. By then, Skippet and Isham grabbed Dune's arms, held them tightly behind his back until Moontree could get some good knots around them. They led him to his familiar room where a small meal sat at the foot of the makeshift bed of rock he had carved for his kidnapped victim for the past 2 months. They closed the boulder, sealing him in until the following evening when he was led by Isham, Salaman, Moontree, Skippet, Anders Sultan, Steamlim, and even Rune. Just taking a sip of tea. There was no ceremony, no council of ifs, other than those 7 who were either chosen or volunteered to go. There was no need for a hearing. They looked at Calypso's body, and Dune admitted to his keeping her a prisoner, though he tried to deny raping her. You raped her, Dune. You left your mark. You're now a liar as well. Goodbye, son of a ghost, the seed of a demon. It was Steamlim speaking. Oh, I should have used a higher voice. You raped her, Dune. You left her mark. You are now a liar as well. Goodbye, son of a ghost, you seed of a demon. It was Steamlim speaking. She was once raped herself by Nif, her own age, when she was only about Calypso's age. And she never forgot the horror and helplessness and the effects of how it scarred her emotionally for life. It wasn't until she met Andersalt, when someone she loved her back, and healing began to be felt. The man-boy, if who raped her, was not banished, for they never found him. His name was Monko, which means no one knows. And no one ever knew where he went to when he ran away, fearing for the council's pronouncement. Steamlim always feared that he might return. I don't know if I should mention this, but I plan to bring Monko back into the story in the second book. The second book is going to be called Retaliations. It took the 8 of them about 4 long hours until they reached the Bat exit entrance Isham wanted Dune to leave by. It was the furthest from the camp, and he hoped it would help confuse the new pariah should he ever try to find his way back. There was little chance of that, however. Dune knew he would never be accepted again. He managed to walk a few yards when he stopped. I want you to know I love that woman, he spoke as he looked over his shoulder, trying to meet with eye contact for each of them. No, you didn't, Steamlim countered strongly with a tight expression. If you did, you would have spoken the truth. As Dune walked away and the sun was barely seen, they watched as his tall, now silhouetted frame dipped below the plain as hundreds, then thousands, of bats fluttered out of the caverns, surrounding Dune in a hectic flurry, diving at him and then leaving him alone as they searched for insects. And with much confusion but love, Calypso bore a child. She named him Sparrow Star. He grew to be a vagabond, and no one knew where he or whether he lived or died. Haven't decided if I'm going to bring him back into the story. Probably should, huh? Anyway. 4 more years passed. Calypso recovered as well as could be expected, and she even met her own mate for life by then. A young lad of only 18 years, his name was Blink. Many nicknamed him Blinker, for he had a curious habit of blinking nervously and rapidly whenever he was either flustered or teased. When he met Calypso, his eyes batted constantly like a young sparrow's wings in a bird bath. Moontree, Skippet spoke one late night as they made some scout rounds under the New Mexican desert stars. Moontree, there's something that I've been meaning to tell you, and I never know when it's a good time. With Blinker and Calypso's marriage now sure, and with the clan seeming to finally feel some peace after all what that happened after the man quake some 4 seasons back, I think I may as well tell you now. Moontree knew something was amiss, something he didn't want to hear, and yet he stopped walking. So let's sit here on these 2 dead Mugut limbs. Mugut are dwarf elms. That's not an F word. I believe that's a real plant in New Mexico. Skippet sat next to his friend. Slowly he reached for the front folds in his soft wool cloak and spread its leaves open. There, in full view, were the worst-looking sores and brown bumps Moontree had ever seen in his life. They were everywhere, all across Skippet's chest and stomach. It's like the sheik that killed so many when it first happened, only now it's caught up with me as well. I find it very uneasy when I try to sleep at sleep times, and these things hurt more and more, like hornet stings that never dislodge and disappear. Moontree felt a slow, fat tear trickle down his face as his quavering hand reached for Skippet's. "No," he said in a soft whisper, almost imperceptible. "Yeah," said Skippet, trying to force a smile under the bright three-quarter New Mexico moon. "I'ma be shuffling along, going near the roads to glory and great spiritsville before too much more of this earthly plane, palsy-walsy." Moontree smiled weakly and squeezed his dear friend's hand tighter. "This isn't the way this tale's supposed to end, Skippet. This isn't the way we're supposed to..." Moontree's tears were now beyond control. They sat on the two invasive magoot limbs until the bats returned home. A month later, at Skippet's midnight above-ground funeral, Calypso walked up to Moontree and placed a small cactus plant within a stone cup into his arms. "Plant this by the main portal where the bats are the most joyful every night and every morning. It is a field-tep cactus, and that's a barberry fig." I think I may be making up if words for plants. I don't know. I think, yeah. Anyway, it was Skippet's favorite, and this one will grow like a mountain tree. Every time you water her, she will be singing an invisible song to your friend. Moontree thanked her and noticed a tiny red flower under one of the flat, light green pads. "And I have some news I know will make you and Skippet happy. Blink and I are with child. We will be going to the secret maternity hall accompanied by Salaman and two nurses right after we say goodbye to Skippet's spirit after the moon's disappearance." "That is such good news on such a sad farewell," Moontree said, genuinely happy for them. Blink had just walked up to the two of them, overhearing the last few words. "One day, Skippet and I were talking about names for children, and he told me if he had had a boy, he would have named him Minlo. And he said if he had a girl, he would have named her Coom." "We've decided," interjected Calypso, "to use either name depending on the child's sex in honor of our sweet and cherished friend." The slow months passed when Calypso finally was in the agonizing throes of childbirth. They were twins, and Minlo and Coom were born. That's the end of chapter 8. Read for another 15 minutes, maybe, something like that. I like to make these about an hour long. Just checking something real quick. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now the beginning of chapter 9, which is called Coyote and Raven. "Follow my footprints," Inuit proverb. And for those who don't know, the Inuits are also known as Eskimos, like real far up north, like the northern reaches of Canada and so on. And I think the further reaches of maybe parts of Alaska. Anyway. Blue Jay was tugging at her sleeping grandfather's sleeves. Grandfather, grandfather, wake up, wake up. It was very early. The sun wasn't even up. 5:25 a.m. What heavens? What is it, Blue? It's not time to get up. What is the matter? It's Coyote, grandfather. Coyote. Nellie wiped her eyes as she rolled over in the direction of her husband's rapt attention. I'll fix you some grits and flat cakes. You two can hash this out. I'm sure it has nothing to do with me. As Nellie crawled out of bed, searched for her slippers in the dark, and shuffled off to the kitchen, Blue Jay's wide and desperate eyes remained fixed on her grandfather's. Now, Blue Jay, honey, what's this about Coyote? I had a dream, a powerful one, Grandpappy. Coyote came to me in this dream only a little while ago. I thought I could wait longer, but I couldn't. She was almost in tears, her small frame shaking with every word. Now, sweet bird, her grandfather said reassuredly. You do like your grandmama and fetch yourself some slippers. I'm going to go pee, and by the time I get back, I expect those little toes of yours to be as snug as bugs in their rugs. You hear me? Blue Jay scampered off to her bedroom and grabbed her slippers, hurrying back to her grandparents' small room. She waited patiently as she listened to her grandfather grunt his annoyance at his old bladder's slow flow. She heard the toilet flush at last, the sound of the trickling sink, and his own footsteps make their way back to where she waited, seated at the foot of their queen-size goose-down bed. Now then, let this old pappy climb under these cool sheets again while we both wait for the smell of Grandmama's flat cakes. I'm all ears, Blue Jay. Blue Jay's bright big eyes looked at Elton with the seriousness of a Baptist tent preacher, as if she was about to release the gospel to a crowd of heathen cannibals. It started as clear as day and it ended dark as night. It's not easy to forget. At first I was just hiking with your grandfather in the hoodoos, in the desert, in the midday sun. We spotted a butte you said held special powers and magic. I had no idea what you meant, but I always knew you spoke the truth, so we headed that way in total silence. Elton propped his down pillow up so his shoulders were higher and he could listen with better attention. This time Blue Jay had a story to tell. As soon as we reached that jutting flat place, he jumped out at us. He began laughing and speaking to us in our own language. In English. My, this is important dream, dear girl. Go on. His voice was soft yet gritty. Gentle yet strong. Peaceful yet kind of scary, too. Anyway, he said, thought I'd prove to the little girl here I'm still around. You acted as if it was the most natural thing in the world. This big coyote talking to us this way. You said back to him, Yes, Coyote, I'm gladdened by your appearance, for you are the coyote I told her about. Yes, he answered, I am, and you know what I brought to the world. Fire. With fire, many sad things have come about, but mostly many happy things. Cooking, warmth, survival, and winter. I gave many creatures a good thing, but especially mankind, humankind. I am happy I've helped you, and you are teaching the little one about the old ways. That, too, is a good thing. But now I have a warning to share with you, and I want you to share it with all the world, all your humankind. You have your own kind of discovery. Many of you think is as powerful as the fire I brought you all with my tail brandishing its wildness. But I must warn you, though powerful, it has a dark side too, even more so than fire. Elton's eyes narrowed. This was no child's dream of animal lore. This was getting beyond that. Your kind has discovered a fire that can move mountains, move countries, destroy entire civilizations within moments. It can produce heat and it can help you with energy needs, but it cannot be contained in a box or a building. It is too strong for boxes and buildings. It cannot be quenched with water, no matter how big the hoses. Blue Jay spoke as if she were in a trance. It felt to Elton like he was not listening to an 8-year-old any longer. It felt like he was listening to an ancient mystic only his father and father's fathers would understand. It is what some call poison and others call death. Even so, it will appear helpful and healthy, and the answer to all your needs for warmth, for light, for your survival. Yet it has a hidden trap. This trap is like the fire that sent me into the pool of fire that drowned me. It is a trap that cannot be sent away like the ashes of real fire. This fire is of the highest order of evil. This power, this energy, this fire will kill you slowly but steadily. It will kill you for generations to come. Grandpapa, spoke Blue Jay softly after pausing a moment. He said all of this unlike anything I've ever heard in a dream or even in real life before. His eyes were glowing like fire itself, and yet he did not scare me any at this point. He only made me want to remember everything he was trying to tell me about, to warn me about. Go on, child. Well, then he just laid down at my feet. He was dying. He looked up at me and said, "Go back here again with your kin. Tomorrow, I will be waiting for you. There is someone I want you to meet. You already met her once. You played with her." And then he died. He shut his eyes and he died. Blue Jay shuddered. But that was not the end of the dream, Grandfather. No, it got even weirder. "Who are you?" I heard another voice from behind me say. You had disappeared, and in your place was a huge black raven. He must have been 9 feet tall or so. He was perched on one of the cavern openings I had seen when I saw those owl eyes the other day. I think he was speaking in Apache, though I understood every word as if it were in English. His face had many eyes, at least 20 or maybe even more. He was marvelously beautiful, yet his face and size scared me. "My name is Blue Jay," I answered. "Why are you here?" he asked me in his Apache raven voice. I don't know, really. My grandfather, he said this was a special place, and so I followed him here. The bird looked down on me, and all of those eyes blinked their eyelids at the same time. "It sounds to me like the..." Oh, Elton speaking. "It sounds to me like the spirit of the Apache spirit dancer," Elton said softly to his granddaughter. Maybe so. "I am sorry, grandchild. Do go on. I am listening most carefully." Well, like I said, his face was frightening. "I looked around me. I wanted to see where you had disappeared to. You were up in the air, and I felt scared like you were maybe dying. Grandmama was with you now, and Lark was there too, and some of our other relatives, all floating under this shadow, this big raven shadow." He grew larger and larger until his entire body filled the sky. He then slowly descended on us all, you all in the air and me on the ground, like a mother hen upon her eggs. Everything became pitch black. A warmth was felt. No one uttered a sound. One of us, I think it was Lark, then all of us reached up to feel the soft feathers, so we knew it was him that caused this soft, death-like darkness. But it felt like we were in a movie theater. We all waited patiently for the overpowering but gentle experience to end. We expected the giant raven to lift off of us softly as he laid on top of us, but it didn't happen. We were in pitch black confusion, and there was this nothingness that wouldn't let up. That's when I woke up. Elton stared blankly at Blue Jay. He was at a loss. He was readying himself to tell her more about the Apache Mountain Spirit dancers and how he thought she would be ready to go to one of the ceremonies, but he stopped. This dream seemed, to him anyway, to be something even more than their spiritual messaging. This was not only Coyote, but Raven, giving his grandchild some kind of warning. We should do as he asked, Blue Jay, was all he could muster. Do what? What who asked? Coyote. Coyote asked you to see him where you saw the giant burrowing owl today. Just then they heard Nellie announce breakfast was ready. That's a good place to close for tonight. I hope you're enjoying this. And I thank you for listening. Good night. Yeah.